your cell phones. I've been involved in some degree or another with the Jewish Heritage Center for decades, 25 years or more. And being involved in outreach, or even tangentially to outreach, gives you all kinds of insights and experiences. Now, let me just share with you one brief experience that happened to me and my wife about 25 years ago. At that point, we were very involved with dealing with college-age students who were Jewish but had very little connection to their heritage. And we would send them to different places for Shabbos. And before they would go for Shabbos, we'd give them a little bit of an explanation of what to expect, what kind of experience they would have. And then afterwards, we would follow up and try to understand what their experience was and where we would take it from there. There was a fellow, David Schwartz. David Schwartz was a lovely young fellow, very bright, very engaging. And we sent him to a particular family, the Gottliebs, for Shabbos. Now, the Gottliebs lived in Crown Heights. And we forgot to prepare him for the Shabbos experience at the Gottlieb family. Because at the Gottlieb family, unlike most homes where they make Kiddush at the beginning of the Friday night meal, they make Kiddush at every point of the Friday night meal and every point of the Shabbos lunch meal. And they make Kiddush after Kiddush after Kiddush. We forgot to explain that to David before. Moshe Shabbos, as we always did, I called up David and I said, David, how was your Shabbos? He goes, Mr. Bane, it was fantastic. I never had an experience like that. I said, David, do you now understand Shabbos better? He said to me, Mr. Bane, I got to tell you something. I still don't know why you're not allowed to open lights on Shabbos. But at least now I know why you're not allowed to drive on Shabbos. So these are the kinds of experiences you have. You know, we find ourselves in the period between Shavuos, Tammuz, and Tisha B'Av, the 3 weeks. And it's a period of mourning, of sadness, and we cry over the destruction of the temples. And for most people, this is one of the most difficult parts of Judaism. Because how are we expected to cry over buildings that we never saw, over buildings that existed thousands of years ago, over an experience that's foreign to us? It's hard enough to cry over contemporary tragedies. How do we cry over something that happened so many years ago, and yet it's fundamental to our Jewish experience? And I was taught that anybody who asks that question really doesn't understand what the crying is all about. But rather, the Beis HaMikdash, the temples, were not merely edifices. They were not merely buildings. They were a conduit, an opportunity for the Jew to connect to God. And the crying we cry, the tears that we shed, is not over the loss of the building, but rather over the loss of the opportunity, the access that the Beis HaMikdash, that the temple gave us in connecting to God. And today, during this 3-week period, we have tragedy after tragedy, because every Jew who's deprived of their heritage, who's deprived of an opportunity to connect to God, is a destruction of the temple. It's another incident of losing an opportunity for the Jewish people to connect to God. And therefore, these tears are very contemporary, very real, and touch our hearts very deeply. My connection to the Jewish Heritage Center is because, for me, the Jewish Heritage Center has been an expression of that care, of that concern, of that appreciation that every Jewish soul deserves and should be given the opportunity to connect to the Torah, to connect to our heritage, and to connect to the beauty of the relationship between Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and God. And when we watch the programs and see the enormous impact that so many people enjoy from their relationship with the rabbis of the Jewish Heritage Center, with the classes, the shiurim, the Shabbatons, the Yom Tovim, and see the growth of Torah Judaism that they have triggered, and the enormous beauty of the relationship between the Jew and our Creator, that's what the Jewish Heritage Center does for us. And therefore, there's no period of the year more appropriate to be strengthening, to be encouraging, and to be celebrating the Jewish Heritage Center than during this period of our calendar where we cry over the loss of opportunity to connect to God, to celebrate those who on our behalf are reigniting the first steps towards the rebuilding of the temple. And therefore, it's particularly gratifying for me to have the honor of introducing one of the two directors of the center, Rabbi Moshe Turk.